What up, flockers? In this video we're going to review the Plum Headed Parakeet. Now here in my hand is a baby Plum Headed Parakeet, and it's just so cute and very cuddly, and it's kind of falling asleep in my hand right now. It's just really adorable. Now this baby parrot comes from Omar's Exotic Birds down here in Southern California, and in my opinion they are the best pet store and a good model store for other stores all around the country, because they actually let the parrots out to interact with people and help the birds realize that humans and birds are kind of the same flock, which is awesome. And that's what leads to really tame parrots. Now, they didn't sponsor this video, but they did help me out loaning this parrot for this review. So for that, thank you guys so much. I'll have a link to their website in the description below. Check them out. Now, plum-headed parakeets are one of the most fascinating parrots in the entire parrot kingdom, and it's because they have the iconic plum head to them. This really cool pinkish purple violet kind of head that they have that completely separates the head from the rest of the body with this really vibrant green. I mean, there's no parrot like it. And what's also really cool about plum heads is they are sexually dimorphic, meaning that you can visually tell the difference between males and females. Males have this beautiful iconic coloration with the plum head, with this sharp black border that separates the head from the rest of the body, whereas females, they kind of lack the border and they have more of a violet head to them, also lending to a really unique look. So if you're looking to get a plum-headed parakeet, you have two amazing choices to choose from. Now, as you can see with this plum-headed parakeet, it's for the most part solid green, and that's because it's still a baby. The colors will show generally about after they're a year old. So if you know the exact color that you want, male or female, you definitely want to get your baby DNA tested to know for sure if it's the parrot you're looking for. You're gonna get an amazing looking parrot either way. Now, these parrots come from the woodlands of India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, around that kind of area, and they have a lifespan in captivity of about 15 to 30 years, so these birds are going to be a lifelong commitment. Now, their personality, I kind of summed them up as like a very shy cat type of personality, because they're definitely kind of flighty when they get spooked, and they do get spooked pretty easily, so it's going to be a lot of work to kind of get them out of that shyness. But when you do, they can be amazing, rewarding parrots. So the big question is this the right parrot for you? And to break that down, we have our 6 categories, which are going to be handleability, quietness, talking ability, care, heartiness, and upfront costs. Now, if you guys find this video really valuable, please make sure you hit like for the YouTube algorithm, as it'll really help share the absolute amazingness of this plum-headed parakeet. Now, this channel's goal is to review every single parrot in existence, so if you support my cause, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow along this amazing journey. So first up is going to be handleability, and for handleability, I give the plum-headed parakeet a score of 2 out of 5. You see, the very interesting thing about these birds is they're very shy and frail kind of birds. They have a very frail frame, very thin legs, and as such, these birds are well aware that they have pretty weak bodies, and that's kind of why they're very flighty and shy. In the wild, they are going to be flying away as soon as possible because they don't want to get eaten, because these birds are not that high up on the food chain, unfortunately. So as such, they're very easy to spook, and that will cause them to scurry away, which can be a little demoralizing for someone looking for a pet parrot and hoping for something a little more friendly right out of the gate. And then on top of that, if you have things like strangers or other family members, this bird is also going to be very spooked every time you have somebody over. With these birds, you're going to have to spend a lot of time to course them out of that shyness until they become very trustworthy of you and become amazing pets. They're overall pretty reserved as far as their personality goes, but when you develop that trust with them, they actually can turn out to be somewhat social and very affectionate, and they're gonna love to hang out with you and play with you. They have very fun personalities. Now, they're very much a flock-minded type of parrot, more so than others, I would say. So a parrot like this, you're gonna want to make sure that you keep them in the center of your house with the rest of your family, so it's constantly getting that attention. The big benefit is that's gonna help them get out of that shyness. Once they kind of feel like they're part of your family and part of a flock, and the parrot can trust everybody to protect it, it's going to be a great pet. So far it's kind of sounding more like, if anything, like a 3 out of 5, but I kind of drop it a point because most Asiatic parrots tend to have something called a bluffing phase. The best way to describe that is basically they turn into little rascally teenagers for a little bit. As they're maturing, they're gonna hit this huge hormonal stage where they can just turn out to be pretty nasty parrots. Now, plumheads aren't extremely known for that, unlike some other Asiatic parrots, but it is something to keep in mind that they can turn a little bit mean, and you're gonna have to work with them to get them out of that bluffing phase. Generally, the bluffing phases tend to scare off a lot of beginners and cause a lot of people to give up, which makes these parrots get rehomed a lot. So that's why I don't really recommend them for beginners. If you're gonna get this kind of a parrot, just understand you will have to put in a lot of hours in the very beginning to keep them as a very nice tame parrot and upkeep that, and then they're gonna turn out to be really great pets. Next up on this list is going to be Quietness, and for Quietness, I give the plum-headed parakeet a score of 4 out of 5. They're actually really quiet, like they're not noisy at all. Now they will chatter quite frequently, but if you have a male especially, it's just going to be chattering like local sounds and words and phrases, and they're just going to be really great, decent little talkers. But their quietness score is really down because their loudness is very quiet. They're rated around like just over 68 decibels, which for comparison, that's like a conversation like we're having right now, or like a dishwasher running. Like, it's overall a very quiet parrot. Maybe might have some occasional loud spurts here and there, but these parrots actually work out great for apartment setting. So if you are looking for a quiet parrot, but actually also can talk, these parrots are actually great. Now this brings me to the next category, which is going to be talking ability. And for talking ability, I give them a score of 3 out of 5. They're actually pretty decent. I'm actually pretty impressed. Of course, if you want a talker, you definitely want to get a male parrot, as generally female parrots in the parrot world aren't really talkers. They can actually have a decently small library of like phrases, words, sounds. Like, they actually kind of pick up talking pretty alright for such a small, quiet bird. They're pretty much an exception, because normally quiet birds aren't talkative, but this bird, they actually, yeah, they talk. It's awesome. And for their very tiny size, they actually have some pretty decent clarity. I wouldn't say as clear as like a conure, but like, it's still pretty decent for what it is. They're probably more likely to learn things like sounds and whistles over phrases, so that is something to keep in mind. But over time, they will pick up some stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty decent talking parrot. So next up is care, and for care, I give the plum-headed parakeet a score of 3 out of 5. They're actually pretty easy parrots to take care of. I mean, as far as upkeep goes, they're a small bird, so you don't need as big of a cage. Just like a basic like flight style cage that's decently tall enough for like their long tail. Like, you're pretty much set, just like your average conure cage, pretty much. Again, you give them like a normal amount of like toys to keep them occupied, and you put them on a basic pellet diet with, you know, your every other day like fruits and veggies, and like they're gonna be really easy to care for. But I knocked the score down a little bit just because of that bluffing stage. I think that's a very big thing about caring for these birds, because if you don't work through that bluffing stage, they can turn out to be pretty mean or flighty birds, and you're not gonna have a nice pet that you were hoping for. And even after the bluffing stage, I would still say it's very important to keep up with your daily interactions with this bird, because they are very flighty birds, and if they don't get handled that much, eventually they just won't want to be handled at all, and that's going to be a big deal breaker for a lot of people. So I do think this bird could be maybe just a bit too demanding for a 9-to-5 person, unless when you come home you can really spend a good amount of time interacting with the parrot. Otherwise, this parrot's just going to end up being more of a show bird in your house, and whereas it's going to look cool because it is a very cool looking parrot, it's not going to be the pet that you're kind of going for. And then of course, this bird needing to be in that flock mentality, they really need to be in the center of your household with constant interaction happening. So you definitely need to keep up on that to keep this bird nice and friendly. So I would definitely spend at least a couple hours a day, if you can, interacting with this bird to keep it really nice. Plum heads are so cute. So nice. Hey, baby. Okay, so next up is going to be Heartiness, and for Heartiness, I give it a score of 3 out of 5. This bird is kind of in that medium, small, in-between category, because it's a pretty small size. Obviously, this is a baby, so they will grow bigger than this right now. So don't let this be like your final judge on the size. But they do kind of have a slightly thinner frame and thinner legs, so they are going to be a lot more fragile and prone to crushing. So if you do have kids that are very rough and stuff, I would probably avoid one of these birds, as you know, they might accidentally break a leg or something. So you want to be really careful about crushing with these birds. And on top of that, they don't really take to rough handling well, if at all. I mean, they're very flighty birds, kind of like a cockatiel in a way. So you're not going to be rough housing with this bird anytime soon. But aside from that, they actually are hardy in terms of things like weather and stuff and adaptability. These birds are really intelligent, and due to deforestation, these birds are actually learning to adopt in city life. Not many birds can generally adopt into city life. It's a very harsh environment for birds, but these birds actually handle it pretty well. And they're hardy enough that some people actually will keep plumheads in outdoor aviaries because they're pretty resistant to all kinds of weather. They do a really good job adapting to different weather conditions. So for the small size, like, they're actually a pretty hardy parrot as far as that goes. It's just the small size that has me concerned, as small parrots are going to be a lot more prone to crushing, so you want to be a lot more careful. Alright, next up is going to be upfront costs. And for upfront costs, I give these birds a score of 3 out of 5. I would want to give them a score of 4, but it's really difficult to price these birds because these birds just aren't that common in the pet trade. They're okay in terms of like availability, but they're definitely not popular birds by any means. Generally, this class of like Asiatic parrots, people tend to gravitate more towards things like Indian ringnecks or mustache parakeets. So plumheads don't actually get as much attention compared to those kind of parrots. So for that, I've seen them go for as low as like $500, but also as high as $1,500, generally for a male, because males are a lot more sought after because they talk and they have the more iconic plum head that lends to their name. But however much you can get this parrot for afterwards, being this small, they do great in like a small medium-sized cage, so they're really great for apartments. And those cages are generally pretty cheap, like maybe 60 to 100 bucks. And also they're very affordable upkeep because they're small, they don't eat too much. So overall, they're actually like really affordable parrot to take care of if you get a female or you get a breeder who is a little more fair with their pricing and just says, hey, you know, you take them for whether it's male, female, whatever. And if we're just talking only females, and I would give this a 4, but because of the males, I bump it down a point. As, you know, $1,500 for a very small bird is a little expensive in my opinion. So overall, my final score tallies up to a score of 3 out of 5. They're actually a very solid parrot that's very easy to care for. And in my opinion, they actually would be a pretty decent beginner parrot if it wasn't for the fact that they have a bluffing phase, and flighty parrots generally aren't popular with beginners because beginners generally want more like a pocket puppy, and this bird, it's definitely not that. It's a lot more shy and flighty and more of a bird type personality, if that makes sense. But if you do have experience with parrots and you do understand parrot body language and you love it, and you want a really fun, inquisitive, loyal small parrot that you can keep in an apartment and has a really cool look that's super iconic in the parrot world, this may be the right parrot for you. If this video was valuable, please make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.